Virtual Reality Environments or VREs for Training and Learning by Calliope Evangelia Stavrolia, Maria Cristofe, Telmo Zaronandia, Despina Michael Gregorio, and Andreas Lanitas. Before we proceed to our actual discussion, allow me to introduce myself first. I am Jordan Barrias and my co-presenter for this lesson is Ms. Cadido. So here are the objectives of our lesson. At the end of the lesson, you will know the significance of virtual reality environments to teaching and learning. Identify the limitations and opportunities of VREs, and lastly, understand the use of VR for training teachers and students. The introduction of virtual reality environments. The term virtual reality or VR was first used by Haron Lanier, founder of VPL Research in 1989. When he began to develop goggles and gloves which were needed to experience what he called VR. People in VR are immersed in an environment that is realized through computer-controlled display systems, and with the possibility to affect changes in that environment. Moreover, VR provides users the ability to experience realistic scenarios, environments, and situations, and chances are they will likely react natural and realistically. So we could say that VR simulates reality. Example of current uses of VR in real applications include simulations, training, learning, and phobias treatment. In the broad area of training, immersive VR and its power of interaction with virtual objects and visualization could be extremely helpful. An area that VR training is being used is in sports and physical training in general. What makes VR ideal for this area is that when an HMD is combined with the body tracking of the user, or at least hand or foot tracking, it could be utilized to train athletes or normal people to play sports, or even just for exercising without having the need to go to an actual gym. Also, VR environments can provide those experts an ideal space to replicate situations similar to those that they face, providing them the opportunity to be trained as many times as necessary and experiment on proper course of action but within a safe three-dimensional environment. For instance, VREs could provide medical students a virtual setting like a hospital, for example, allowing them to interact with human body or with virtual patients, minimizing the risk of harming a real patient. VR can also be a powerful tool in the research of empathy for learning and education. Stover, 2007, described a computer simulation that allowed students to participate in the emotional effect of the Cold War, developing a sense of empathy with decision makers and having a better appreciation about the risk, danger, and fear associated with the Cold War. The last few years, the use of virtual reality environments or VREs in the field of education has attracted the interest of the scientific community that seeks new ways to bring technology into the learning process. Now, let's proceed to the significance of virtual reality in the learning process. Research revealed numerous benefits of using VR-based approach in the field of education. Most importantly, VR technology allows the development of virtual worlds that mimic the real world, simulating real-based incidents and situations, providing the users a space that suits their needs for training and learning through experimentation. Another significant issue is that learners could potentially feel more psychologically present in virtual environments compared to the traditional learning methods. That fact makes VREs an extremely useful therapeutic tool for the treatment of anxiety disorders, social phobia, public speaking anxiety, fear of spiders, or even fear of flying. As an illustration, VREs have been used for job interview training in order to enhance interview skills and self-confidence for individuals, so as to have greater odds of receiving a job and weed out their anxiety. Another significant issue is that VREs allow training in situations where it is impossible to do it in a physical space due to the cause of possible danger. To illustrate, it is not possible to train in real scenarios, firefighters or bioterrorist response unit, as those dangerous situations cannot be created in reality. However, within VREs that represent real-life dangerous crises, the users can experience such chaotic and stressful crises, and through continuous training, be prepared to act accordingly if needed. Another important aspect is that VREs can support knowledge acquisition by supporting different learning styles such as visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Apart from visual capabilities, VR can offer the user haptic and auditory capabilities, maximizing their experience in the virtual world and, more importantly, their learning. VR allows the visualizations of the educational content, allowing the users to better understand concepts that are difficult to present dynamically in the traditional classroom. Furthermore, instructors can develop cooperative activities with VREs, promoting communication, collaboration, and social skills of the users. Using VREs in an innovative approach that can promote creativity skills, allowing users to develop their own VREE, which results in idea generation while offering new educational opportunities. Moving on, let's tackle the limitations of VR. Despite the several positive aspects of using VR in education, there are several limitations and challenges that need to be addressed. One of the more significant challenges is to ensure that the designed activities of VR applications developed for educational purpose meet the pedagogical objectives that must be achieved, providing the necessary education added value to learners. VREs have potential to enhance teaching and learning. However, it is essential to establish the theoretical framework that will guide the design and development of the VR system, aiming to promote effective learning. Also, technological problems must be taken into consideration, as the continuous technological advancement have not yet eliminated all the technical difficulties, while the design of VREs is also a complex issue. Another important limitation is that the acquisition of high-fidelity VR technology by non-educational institutions, such as schools, is difficult due to the cost, in combination with the lack of resources devoted to education. Furthermore, health and safety issues in the form of dizziness and risk of accidents associated with the use of the VR equipment cannot be rejected. Hence, safety measures need to be taken into serious consideration when using VR for education. Additionally, the lack of experience in the use of such technology by teachers and students can cause problems. Thus, training for familiarization to this technology is essential so as for learning purpose not to be downgraded, which is time-consuming. Furthermore, there is a lack of research related to primary and secondary education. However, several factors must be taken into consideration, including the demands of conducting research in a school setting and the recommendations related to the use of the 3D glasses by children. Now, let's proceed to opportunities, VR capabilities, immersion, presence, and embodiment. So, VR technical capabilities. The typical VR system we would recognize until a few years ago focused around vision and sound. The latest developments in VR are experimenting with the use of specialized suits and gloves to provide the users the tactile and force feedback as well. Most rarely, smell and taste are included in a VR system. More technically, VR's goal is to replace the user's real sense perceptions with virtual ones. Many researchers in the 90s have found some of the factors that are fundamental to achieve this sensory substitution, which include head tracking, high-resolution displays, wide field of view vision, stereo, and low latency. Now, for immersion, presence, and embodiment. Three important concepts in the field of VR are immersion, presence and embodiment. A VR system that is considered as immersive is the one that can deliver the ability to perceive through natural sensory motor contingencies. We could say that one VR is more immersive than another one when it simulates a perception the other system cannot. For example, a VR system containing an HMD with head tracking and real-time body tracking of the user could be considered more immersive than a cave. Next, a subjective correlate of immersion is the concept of presence. Presence is the subjective illusion of being there in the environment you are viewing through the VR displays. Slater, in 2009, deconstructed the concept of presence into two independent concepts. The first one is place illusion, and the second one is plausibility illusion. This fundamental aspect of VR to deliver experience that gives rise to illusory sense of place and an illusory sense of reality is what distinguishes it fundamentally from all other types of media. Moreover, if we require for the user to have a virtual representation in the virtual world, we would replace his real body with a virtual one. This process is called embodiment. Splanlang 2014 described a technical setup to achieve embodiment. A typical setup would require an HMD with a wide field of view, head, and body tracking in real time using devices like the Kinect or a motion capture suit or sensors. That's all for my discussion. Thank you guys for listening.
Hello everyone. So we have here a VR or virtual reality for training teachers. Next slide. So addressing the global learning crisis and closing the digital divide requires systems of education that equip young learners with 21st century skills that can be enabled through integration of technology tools in their classrooms. However, teachers often lack not only digital skills themselves, but also the pedagogical broadness to meaningfully engage students in inquiry-based activities that make the most of access to technology. Seen from global theoretical and practical levels, teacher training is the cornerstone of achieving quality education. It ensures and sustains an educational process that produces meaningful learning, which is adaptable as new knowledge and techniques emerge in the field. However, slow uptake of pedagogical methods, lack implementation of policies, shortage of funds and personnel, shortage of expertise available equitably across regions and locales, lack of intensives for the profession, limited time, and difficult access due to distance all contribute to gaps in teacher training, even as training needs persist and grow. Next slide. So VR environments can be used for the development of highly effective and professional future teachers that will be successful in the classroom. So, using virtual reality or VR, teacher training can be facilitated in a comfortable and individual virtual space where teachers can practice pedagogical approaches and new ways of integrating information and communication technology or ICT at their convenience and as frequently as possible. It reduces the hassle of high costs associated with training venues, peer diems during training periods, travel to training sites, or missing school days. Next slide. So the significance of using immersive VR environments in teacher training lies on the fact that the scenarios can simulate real-life based phenomena and situation, while the knowledge gained within the VE can be transferred to the real world. Next slide. So another key point is that based on the pedagogical practices, the design and metrics of the VR environment was first set by identifying teacher training goals, which are VEs provide teachers a safe environment within which they can make mistakes but without influencing learning of real students. Next slide. So, by the same stolen, virtual classroom environments aim to provide an innovative training tool that can be used for constant professional development and update for teacher skills so that teachers can remain productive. Next slide. So furthermore, the use of virtual environment will allow teachers to take control of their own learning, monitor their progress, and thus learn more. Next slide. And equally important is that the virtual environment will provide immediate feedback and data that in an actual classroom would be difficulty to identify. Next slide. So alright, next is the VR for training students toolkit. Next slide. So students can experience locations that would not be possible or too expensive to visit in person. In this way, VR can open a whole new world of possibilities to teachers and schools. Next slide. Given the growth of VR within education and the positive response from schools, we shouldn't be surprised if VR made it into the curriculum at some point in the future. Curriculum-aligned content and structured VR lesson plans have already been developed. Next slide. So how can virtual reality help students? There are so many ways in which virtual reality can help students, but the main points are: first, students learn better through experience. So the VR provides students an opportunity to learn through experience, in contrast to the traditional methods of reading and writing. Second is the VR has the ability to inspire. Being able to see and experience extraordinary locations within the classroom is completely unique to VR, and it is inspirational to students. So the next is the VR sparks the imagination and encourages creative thinking. The immersive experience that VR provide is unparalleled in teaching. Students are transported out of the classroom and their imagination is allowed to flourish. Next is the VR in education promotes peer interaction. So, throughout the VR experience, students are encouraged to interact with each other. Afterwards, they are eager to share their thoughts and discuss their experiences. Next slide. So, the next is the VR engages students. Many students get bored with classic teaching methods. The modern technology of VR gets students' attention like nothing else. We find that students instantly want to try out the VR. Next is the VR provides realistic travel experiences. Using VR, schools can provide students with travel experiences that would not be possible or practical. Schools can save time and money while providing students with incredible experiences. Next is the VR in the classroom is inclusive. With VR, every student gets the same opportunity to enjoy the experience. Unlike traditional school trips that can be too expensive for parents or too impractical for their children, VR is for all students. The last one is the VR offers memorable educational experiences. Long after the VR has finished, students remember the experience and they are eager to reflect on it future lessons. Next slide. Conclusion. Next slide. So, in order to fully understand how to take advantage of VR advantages in education, more research must be done on the potential of the technology. Teachers need to be aware of the situation and settings where immersive learning will enhance the results of current methods. Next slide. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you gain more knowledge about this topic. God bless.